I'm George Hudson. Got my guy with me, Robbie. We got a great episode today. It's going to be episode 44. Diving into 44. So for today's episode, we got how honest do you have to be? A moral dilemma. Robbie, you're looking good as always. How are you feeling this morning?
Man, I'm feeling great, man. I feel like I'm on top of the world. I've been back in my fitness game real good. Um, and hitting that thing up to 5 days a week. Really
There you
excited
go.
about that. Yeah, man. I'm transforming this body. I'm transforming this mind. I have some specific goals by April 28th, and I got another set of goals for May and another set of goals for October. So I'm looking for a complete total transformation, body transformation is important to me right now. And that kind of lends to where we are in this messaging, right? So this
Hmm.
message right there, right now, it's pretty. I think it's pretty awesome. I think it's right on time. Um, and it's all about honesty, and it's all about integrity, right? And I believe that there is a dilemma, right? Is there a moral or ethical responsibility for us to be honest to one another? The challenge is, where do we live on this subject? Where do we find ourselves? Because um, the ethics behind honesty is every person is taught something different based on their social economic level, right? Based on and their environmental conditions, etc. And
Hmm.
so that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be parked there in that place. It's not an actual location. It's a spiritual, it's a heartfelt, it's a humane spot, and that's the place that requires some additional discovery. If you um, have ever harmed somebody, and you felt that energy that came off from that person when they were harmed, when they were offended by your thoughts, words, your deeds, then you knew that there was a place right there that you and that person were not connected. You probably sometimes somebody can bring about a harm, somebody can bring about an offense. They may not even know that they've harmed or offended, right? And because they're living in two different places, we can all be in the same United States of America, but we're living dynamically different because of where we are, where we've been taught on our moral ethical codes, right? Where we assign a responsibility for our actions, where do we uh, sign those off to government, to teachers, to preachers, to other people in our lives, whether we want to accept the moral responsibility for ourselves or not. At the end of the day, our honesty and our integrity is being shaped and molded and accepted by us, shaped and molded by outside forces, accepted by us, and it could create a dilemma. And I think America right now,
Hmm.
because I can't speak for any other country, but I think right now, uh, America is experiencing a crisis, and that crisis of consciousness is coming from a place of honesty, a place of integrity, a place where people say, I'm going to do this, and they don't do it. And because something comes up, the moral integrity and fortitude that used to exist in this country, so you would do it regardless of what it did to you, regardless of what the pain point was. You put your word on something, you said you were going to do something, and because it was uncomfortable, because you got sick, or because some other type of thing came up, you didn't. But your word, like we used to say in the street, word is bond, right? In the communities we came up in, word is bond. When I talk to some people in business and they live on the East Coast, they still understand that because that's something that's still a part of the moral fabric of conversation. Word is bond. And that means if you say
Hmm.
you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it. If you say good morning, guys, how you doing, Sean? How you doing, Kurt? And you say you're gonna do something, you say you're gonna deliver something, then you do what you got to do what you say you're going to do. And that's where we're in crisis, I believe, in America. And like I was talking to a guy yesterday, I was over at Starbucks, and he was asking me what I was dealing with, what I was gonna talk about, and I was alluding to this thing right here, and I said we're in crisis, and he says you're right, and he says I think the world is shifting. I said, man, the energy in the world has already shifted, and people are making choices, and they're making choices for good or bad. What a form of morality is for them against another morality. It used to be religion, used to be a big deal in America. Americans used to believe in God. Right now, less than 12% believe in God, right? There's so many other gods, and there's so many other platforms, and there's so much other stuff going on for people to believe in. They've divorced their relationship with God. They've divorced their relationship with each other. What, 90% of educated women divorce in church. 95% of people that are married to ministers divorce. We got a problem. I mean, uh, people don't want to marry. People don't want to be committed. People don't want to be committed in relationships. So there's an honesty, there's an integrity, there's an ethical, moral
Yeah.
dilemma that's creating a shift in our consciousness, a shift in our availability for each other. And if we don't have an availability for each other, we don't have an availability for ourselves because we're not developing ourselves. And
Hmm.
if we're not developing ourselves and we don't have an availability for other people, we can't develop our children. So the next generation coming along has already got a dearth of understanding in morality and ethics and responsibility and in honesty. And they're learning those things from video games, and they're learning those things from the biggest, I call it the biggest Satan trap on the planet. And hopefully it doesn't blow somebody's mind, but I don't care if it does or not. The biggest Satan trap on the planet is sending our children to public schools where they're not teaching in the public school how to be entrepreneurs, how to be your absolute
Hmm.
best self. They're teaching you how to follow in a lockstep, how to obey rules and regulations as they're given, as they shift and as they change on the dime for political interests and for money and greed interests. And we're putting our children in those institutions, believing that they're supposed to gain something. And then we try to laud some type of rule or regulation over them based on our moral code, which whatever's left of it. And we're just stripping the family, the family unit, the nuclear family is just being eroded
Hmm.
because the school teacher has more authority, and she's teaching you that the police officer has authority over you, and they're teaching you that political laws, rules, and regulations that are supposed to be given to govern, and they're supposed to be given for the benefit of the people, but obviously we know it's for the benefit of that person's pocket. And all this kind of garbage is going on, and we got warmongers and we got whoremongers that are putting out policy, and we got all kind of crazy stuff that's happening in our schools. And this is the purpose of this messaging, as it were, this podcast. We're doing nothing
Hmm.
about it. We're doing nothing about it.
Yeah, so I think we've crossed the path where we're no longer in, I guess what you're alluding to is that state of honesty, that state of integrity as a country as a whole. And I mean, it's not to say that there's never been people with ill intentions. There's never been people, because everyone at the 0.1 of the 1%, the people that run the show, I guess you could say, I think there's always been this agenda. There's always been this scheme. There's always, but
100%.
it's trickling down more and more, I think, just to the average person. And um, I think those statistics on how many people believe in God and how many people like live to a higher power or higher purpose, and as that diminishes, it's all relative. It's relative to your situation and how desperate you are to be, to get results, or however. I guess people are way more inclined to not be morally sound
Because
when
it's easy.
there's because it's easy. It's an easier path.
And you're
I
not
also.
responsible.
Mhm. And I think more and more, or less and less, you could say, we are battle tested to handle difficult or adverse situations. So we think if there's any sort of resistance, then we just move on. It's not the right fit. So, but the things that are worthwhile, the things that give you purpose, the things that give you meaning, aren't always going to make you happy. So happiness is fleeting, right? In terms of like that dopamine happiness, like the feeling of joy and peace and the ecstatic feeling of always being entertained and enthused. And life's just not always like that. It's ups and downs. It's just the spike in pleasure, and then you plateau, and then you go down, and then you go back up. And Andrew Huberman talks about that. You know, just in regard to life, like we put out energy and then we're depleted, and then we need rest to get back to where we were, and then we build back up. It's like resistance training in the gym. Hypertrophy training is the best example of that. You break yourself down to build yourself
Yep.
back up stronger, and then sometimes you go lower than you have been before, and then that's to build it up higher than you have been ever. So, you go ahead, Robbie.
No, I was going to inject something. Shauna says we have tolerance for these things. Sensuality gets me, and then she also says there's a lot of other things concerning who they are or who we are, and I think she's spot on. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that you said about the resistance, and you started to get into that. I want you to hit that a little bit more in just a sec. I noticed something. So I was reading in the scriptures, and I'm compelled to read all the books in the scriptures that begin with J. I want to encourage everybody to read all of the books that begin with J in the scriptures, and every leader that manifested with that J in front of their names. It's an amazing fabric, interwoven fabric that comes in a message that helps piece a lot of things together. Anyway, in the book of Joshua, he was given a command. His command was to go and to fight against these kings, right? And what I saw was a pattern. It was always minimally 5 kings or 7 kings, and I related those kings to our 5 senses because it was minimally always 5 kings or 7 kings. And he had to fight. Now the purpose behind me sharing this is he was given a promise to go into the promised land with a people, and there was a moral integrity. There was a moral and a spiritual integrity that was developed, and it wasn't just something that was given right on the spot. It says, as I was with Moses, so shall I be with you. That's what God said. And the people said, as we were with Moses, so shall we be with you. So everybody that was unbelieving, they died off in the wilderness. Those that believed that the journey, the pressure, the resistance, the weather, anything else, those that couldn't believe and wouldn't obey died off in the wilderness. Those that could believe, follow the pattern, they were able to go into the promised land. Here's the key part. When they got into the promised land, they had to when they got into the promised land, so it took some years to get there. So it took
Mm-hmm.
some time for this training, this moral integrity to be built, this love for God to be built and established. And when it was built and it was established, when they got into the promised land, they were challenged by kings and kingdoms that didn't have the same feelings, didn't have the same moral integrity, didn't have the same laws, didn't honor the same God. And so they would mount up in packs, 5 at a time, sometimes 7 kings. They go talk to each other. And all those kings had their own philosophy, but they got on one accord because they wanted to stop the moral integrity. They wanted to stop the moral, biblical, not it wasn't biblical, but spiritual thrust that they saw happening with this new group of people who came on one accord, had one mind, one God. And so they would fight 5 kings at a time. And so Joshua, what I saw was he would listen to what God said. He would make sure his family understood and obeyed. He made sure his community was in agreement and in alignment, and that they were all on one accord and had one mind, one sound thrust, and that was to stop the adversary fearlessly because they were all on one accord. And so when they went out in obedience and they went out in that one mind thrust, and they were all on one accord together, then they were able to overcome over and over and over again the adversary until there was ever found one person that was greedy, that tried to be clever and slick and try to take advantage of uh, that moral integrity, that level of honesty, that depth of community, and that break away from God, right? And, and,
Hmm.
and so when I saw that, I said, wow, five kings, five senses are always under attack in war. Then seven kings, our seven senses are always under attack. Our imagination, sixth sense. Our spiritual walk, seventh sense. It's always under attack. But what I also saw was he never relented. And if there was a loss somewhere, he said, my God, where is this coming from? And what he was always able to find, that God would speak to him in the integrity of who he is and tell him, this right here is happening, that right there is happening. And because he had an integrity, a moral line, a spiritual line, he was congruent in his walk. He was able to stop immediately what he was doing, ask for forgiveness, immediately attack that weak place in his community, fix it, and go and fight more kings. So to your
Hmm.
point about resistance, man, yes, we've grown so weak nowadays that we believe that a little bit of resistance is a bad thing. No, it's the proving ground.
Yeah.
Finish that
And I
sentence.
think something I heard right there is you can't leave your morality at the doorstep of finding your purpose.
No,
So so acknowledging your morality, being honest, doing things the right way as best you know how. It's a constant learning, gradual learning process, and we're always refining this. But you can't leave morality and somehow sacrifice that for material results and have a worthy life, in my opinion. Yes, you can do that, but the whole purpose of being here and finding that lasting fulfillment and having a genuine impact on the other people around you, you can't leave morality in that process. So, um, and in my opinion, you won't find long lasting success or fulfillment in that way if you do. So, and then to bring up another passage of scripture in Galatians is a man reaps what he sows. So if you're
those.
reaping and sowing, um, or you're sowing, dishonesty, disloyalty, um, immorality, then that is going to find you on the back end. It doesn't matter what intermediate success you do exhibit or experience. Like that is, you can't escape the laws of nature. Like you can't escape God. You can't escape. Some people call it karma. Some people call it, the law of attraction. Whatever. What you put out will come back to you tenfold, good or bad.
It's going to
So
happen. And I think how we arrive at, how we address some of this, because what I read and what I was taught years ago by old heads in the church and out is that there was this great big master plan. And the master plan was that people with means, power, influence, money were going to get to a place where they would create a technology where their brains and their soul man could live forever. They would put themselves in some type of prism of sort and then come back at an appointed time after they started this decline in human morality. This stuff I was learning from old head dudes on the street, cats in the church, leaders. And because the master plan was to get everyone's mind off God, serving God, so man could look like he was God and men could serve him. And it was going to take about 100 years to destroy what we know, what we understand. In this destruction, it was an open gateway to get to a new world order to do different types of things. So whether that's right or wrong, it met resistance, and the resistance that it met came from this: the golden rule. And so there were people at that time when I was a child, they were talking about the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so that fought against this mindset, this belief that there was an agenda, a big mass agenda that was going to come at the rest of the world. And so, how we doing on time today, man? Because I want to make sure we get all this in. And if we have to come back next
Yeah,
week,
we're
we come
good.
back.
Solid.
Well, we all right.
Let-
So
Let's cap it at 33. So we got another 13 minutes.
we got 13. So hey guys,
Yeah.
we're gonna do this thing, and we're gonna cap it at 33. We'll come back next week with it, but we still got a little bit of time. So look, so let's talk about some of the basic ways we can look at honesty, right? Just tell the truth. So whatever your truth is, just tell it. Just become one with your truth. Be genuine, and learn how to be integral with your emotions, with your spirit, man, with all that. Just be connected where it's on one accord, right? Where it's nothing different, nothing lacking. So you start to make all this stuff come together. Next thing, don't learn that congruence, right, between your emotions, your soul, your intellect, your values, your occupation, your servants to mankind. Make it congruent. Number three, don't place a load of expectation on anyone you're not willing to bear yourself. A student is never greater than a teacher, right? And so as a teacher, then if you place a load, if you're preparing to place some kind of load demand on somebody else, that demand you should already be living out. You should already be exemplified. Doesn't mean you need to be perfect. You need to be living that out so that when you share that out, then you're not a hypocrite. Build your own value system. So I don't know what your value system is, but my value system is lift him up, right? That's coming out of scriptures, but it's an acronym for me. Lift means loyalty, integrity, fidelity, and trust. That's how I want to live. The up lift him, the him part is humility, innovation, inspiration, and manifest. I want to be humble, and I want to be an innovator, and I want to inspire people, and I want to manifest this. Lift him up. This is how I think I honor. And then understanding the up part, UPP, is understanding power and process. Uh, then I want to stay congruent with my language. This language that I speak to myself, this value system that I built for myself, I want to be congruent in my thoughts, my action, my speech, right? So everything, so I don't have to apologize for something that I'm doing because it's congruence in it. Then I want to stay one in my therapeutic model. So therapeutically, I have to keep myself together. And so those of you that have known me for years, you always hear me saying forming, storming, norming, performing, transforming, and then manifest. Because I want to be congruent in all that I do. This is my life. This is my imprint. This is my emgram on this world, and it's set for change and help make other people's lives better. Then number seven, I love the process. I enjoy the process. I do the process. I trust the process. And the process for me is plan, develop, execute, duplicate, replicate. Hey, Curtis, how many times have you heard me teach that? Taught that to your business, doing some
Mm-hmm.
consultation work, right? And then a trusted process for me. The trusted process for me, I grab it from the scriptures. God first, wife and family second, get paid and serve others third. Create a sustainable, practical platform to help people become fishers of men, and then to fish. That's fourth. And then I repeat this all over the planet. So those pastors that are in India, those pastors and leaders that are in Pakistan, those pastors and leaders that are in Africa, and those pastors and leaders that are right here in America, this is what I vibe in. This is congruence. And then finally, my honest may be different than others. Some may be more religious, others more money ruthless. However, if at the core, it enables and helps mankind without unnecessary depletion of resources or the enslavement of humanity at any level for sordid gain, and it's pushing advancement. And it's not secretly about the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, for you to gain at the cost of somebody else. Then you may be moving in a morality that can help and that can deliver, because very wealthy people have a different mindset about things like this because they're very wealthy. Very poor people have a different mindset. Middle class people have a different mindset. But when you find your process and you find your value system, see, so no one can change my value system. No one can change my worth but God. Because this is a process. And this is not based on friendships. This is based on the good that I want to present to the world based on what I've learned about the God of creation and how he sees me and how he values me. And I want to take that opportunity to create a sustainable, workable approach to help somebody define their values so they can make their own personal stand and they can understand what their truth is and they can then define it, make a value statement out of it, and live out that piece congruently in every aspect of their lives. Be an agent of impact.
Yeah, I think you really wrapped that up very well. And then earlier when you said find your truth, like this truth should ultimately align with the universal truths of the universe, of the world we live in. And that always traces back to scripture, to staying true, staying moral, staying good. And I think one of the biggest evidences, like in my mind, the body is not designed to lie, and there are always these cues that give lies away, like very subtle, like my chin moves to the right, or I look a certain way, and like our body is just not designed on a physiological level to lie. And when you do put yourself in situations where you're not like
Congruent.
living congruent with that, there's body language cues that indicate that you're not being truthful, or you're not being passionate, or you're not fully putting your energy into what you're doing, so it's not congruent with you believing what you're doing. So this is like when
That's a great point.
interrogators, so I think we're hardwired to be truthful, to be moral, and when we block those pathways, then our ability to live our passion, to grow and to develop in our relationships, in our business, in our like friendships, to develop our knowledge, all these things I think create blockages in that path of becoming our higher version of ourselves, developing spiritually, mentally, physically, when we don't incorporate morality into that. So it
Now,
literally creates,
a good springboard on that, George, is what have you been taught in elementary school, junior high school, if
yeah,
you had the privilege of going to college? Because if you were in a mind trap, you were in a socialization bubble, and it was to keep you in a lockstep, and you're designed by what you just finished sharing and what I know in our makeup, we're designed to express and fully express, not to be controlled, but to respect authority. And so if
right.
everything in our world is telling us you are enslaved, you're doulos, you're crypto servant, and you're nothing more, that's not right. And so when you're pretending that you're following that system, there's a break. So that's
Hmm.
why you got to build your morality. And I like what you said, base it on the scriptures, uh, base it on our relationship with human beings, and then look for, because you're going to find, I think a human being will find that there are places that they're not yet congruent. For example, I will do it to the day I die. Humility, I ask God every day, but I ask him a certain way now. I'm like, God, I want to be humble. But I said, I don't want to, please, I don't want any more of them hard tests to make me humble.
Yeah,
Just give me the data points and I promise
yeah.
I'm going to do it. Because when I first used to ask for humility, boy, some struggles came and
Hmm.
I got my arm pot smoked. But I ask differently now. So until I died, what I believe God wants from me as humble, not what somebody else defines for me, because you
And
don't know where I came from.
that's the divide now, is there's so many people reinventing the wheel of truth, you could say, and then just kind of like basing it upon, I don't know what, how they feel. And um, not to get too into the weeds, but that's just very popular today. And
Yeah,
as people that are trying to untap, unwind, unhinge, separate from the mold, live our individual path, and not follow the masses, we have to be aware of that. And we have to go back to grade school, high school, college, our friend groups, and just really figure out where we learned and decide why we do what we do.
100%.
And then unlearn and relearn, and then that's life. It's a constant, gradual unlearning, relearning, and unlearning is the highest form of learning, in my opinion,
Yep. Yep.
because if you don't ever learn the shadow side, or the side of you that you don't like and isn't serving you and your path and journey, then you're stuck. So we have to really dig into what we do and why we do it, and
Stay
in
fluid
terms
with
of
it.
when we feel those emotions of anger, hate, jealousy, like all the negative side of life, we have to really question, like, why do I really feel like this? Why can't I see somebody be successful and be happy for them and not jealous, right? And it ultimately, I think, goes back to, or I found myself in this situation, like, I desire higher, like, results for myself, and somebody else succeeding should be evidence that I can do it too, right?
100%.
And it's a abundance mentality of, like, if they can do it, I can do it. There's plenty.
Yep.
I'm not competing against them. I'm learning from them.
And you're
I'm,
competing
I'm
against yourself. Go ahead.
Exactly, and then that sets the stage for me to enjoy their results, and then, yeah, now I reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'm trying to elevate my game. What do you feel like's gotten you to where you're at?" And it's a whole different learning game. It's a whole different mindset versus, "Oh, I don't like them because they're doing well. I want what they have," and then you avoid them. No, they're there to teach you. They're there to help you. They are there to, lead you on your journey. And we have to find people that are above us in life, whether that's, an
Whatever it is.
intellectual ability, whatever it is. And then we have to find people below us that want to get to where we're at. And then we have
Hey,
to find
I gotta
people
tell
on
you
our
something.
level, right?
Uh, in the barber shop, let me drop this nugget on you. I used to shine shoes, right? As a child, and I loved it because I went to the barber shop, asked the barber shop, hey, can I come in and I shine shoes? And they said, yeah, what are you gonna sign them for? And I'm like, I'll do it for I can take care of your shoes for X and everybody else's for Y. But the reason why I said that is because these old cats that weren't millionaires, but they were millionaires, billionaires in wisdom. Their wisdom still speaks to me. Them old cats used to sit there, man, and drop mad wisdom. And so a shoe shine that ordinarily, if somebody wasn't talking and they were just getting their hair cut, I get that shoe, buff it up, spit shine that joint, 15 minutes in and out, heels done. That thing lasts. They
Hmm.
coming back and they give me a $1 or $2 a tip, which is a lot of money. But the old heads, they would be in there talking. I was shining their shoes, man. Unless it was another old head waiting, I'm shining their shoes, extra buff on that joint because he was dropping wisdom. And so I came to value people not by money. This world we live in is lying to us because all wisdom and all riches is not in money. Some people gonna have it, some not. But I can learn and grow from everybody. And so I'm gleaning off of what you said, but I'm also
Hmm.
not going to dismiss my elders
Right.
because I think that's why the world right now is teeter-tottering because we don't respect elders. And so even with money, we could have more money if we just listen to them because even if they didn't acquire it, they can tell you why.
Hmm.
Hey man, I know our
Yeah.
time is up. Hey guys, this is Savage Will, man. We getting unpacked, we getting unhinged, we getting untethered, so we can be unleashed to go out and be the best version of ourselves and more, so we can create sustainable thought life and other people transforming, causing them to manifest, causing them to be a better version of themselves. And you know what? This thing is fluid. It keeps on going and going and going. We never arrive, but we okay because I think at the arrival point, we ready to go home and be with the Creator.
Hmm. I agree. Great episode today, Robbie. I really appreciate you. Anybody listening today, feel free to drop some comments, like, subscribe, tell 3 friends if this is something that you feel like resonated with you. And we'll see you next week at 11:11 on Saturday with the Savage Will podcast. Peace out,
Savage
Robbie.
Will out.
Let's go.